Hey brother, when you were a boy, you needed a man. Not a superhero, not a perfect dad, just a steady presence who could look you in the eye and say, "You're seen, you're loved, you've got what it takes." But for a lot of us, that man never showed up. Or if he did, he didn't know how to give what we needed. And that absence, it shaped us. So many of us didn't grow up with the man we needed. Maybe he wasn't there at all. Maybe he was there, but distant. Maybe he was harsh. Maybe he was broken himself, doing the best he could, but carrying his own scars. Or maybe he was a good man, steady, hard-working, responsible. But he didn't know how to give you the words, the presence, the blessing your soul was craving. And because of that, you grew up missing something. And that missing piece, it didn't just stay back there in childhood. It followed you. It whispers in the quiet. It shows up in the way you see yourself, in the way you handle pressure, in the way you love, and in the way you lead. Brother, if you've ever felt like something is missing inside, like a part of you never got built, you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not broken beyond repair. You're just a man who needed more than he got. And here's the hope. Even if you didn't have that man you needed growing up, you can become him now. I want to start by naming the ache, because sometimes we try to skip this part. We want to jump straight into the solutions, straight into the fix. But let's be honest. Part of why so many men stay stuck is because they never stop long enough to actually feel what they lost. You might carry it as anger. You might carry it as numbness. You might carry it as drive. The kind that makes you hustle harder, work longer, perform stronger. Because deep down, you're still trying to prove something to the man who may never notice. Or maybe it shows up in silence, in the awkward way you shut down when emotions come up, in the way you avoid conflict because you never saw it handled well, in the way you second guess yourself because you never had someone steady and safe to say, "Son, I'm proud of you." But brother, that ache can also show up in other ways. It can look like restlessness, where you can't sit still, can't feel content because silence feels like failure. It can show up as control, needing everything just so, because chaos feels too close to the old wound. It can look like achievement, chasing the next promotion, the next milestone, but never letting yourself enjoy the one you just reached. It can sound like over-responsibility, feeling like you've got to hold everything together for someone, even when it's crushing you. It can even hide behind humor, always joking, always light, because it's easier than being real about the heaviness. Sometimes it's self-criticism, the relentless inner voice reminding you that you're never enough. Sometimes it's comparison, measuring yourself against other men, other fathers, other husbands, and always coming up short. And sometimes it's perfection itself, not as a virtue, but as an armor. If I can just get it right, maybe I'll finally be safe. Maybe I'll finally be enough. This is the ache of not having the man you needed growing up. For me, I know this ache. I know what it's like to look back and realize there were words I needed to hear that never came. There were questions I had that never got answered. There were moments where I needed guidance, but I had to stumble my own way forward in the dark. And here's what I've learnt. If you don't name the ache names you. It starts to define your story. It shapes the way you think about yourself. It sneaks into the way you treat people you love most. It becomes this silent architect in the background of your life, designing a house you never meant to build. So today, let's drag that ache into the light. Not to wallow, not to blame, but to be honest. Because honesty is the doorway to healing. Now let's be clear about something. No man has ever had the perfect father. Even the best dad still fell short. Why? Because every man is human. Every man has limits, blind spots, and wounds of his own. The truth is, no earthly father could ever fully be everything you needed. And if you wait around for that mythical perfect man to show up and retroactively father you, you'll be waiting forever. But here's the other truth. Even though no man could be perfect, there were still things you needed. Basic things, good things, foundational things. Things like consistent presence, encouragement without condition, guidance that was firm but not crushing, a model of how to handle failure without shame, a blessing spoken over your life. If you didn't get those things, it wasn't because you were unworthy of them. It was because the man in front of you wasn't able to give them. That distinction matters, because for years, many of us have carried the lie that maybe we weren't worth fathering. Maybe if we had have been smarter, tougher, quieter, better behaved, then maybe he would have shown up differently. Brother, let me tell you straight. You were worth it. You always were. What you needed was good. What you longed for was right. And if you didn't get it, that wasn't your failure. Now let's talk more about how this shows up today. Because the ache doesn't stay in childhood bedrooms or teenage years. It echoes forward. Maybe you feel it when you're a dad yourself. Standing in front of your kids and wondering, how do I do this when I never saw it done for me? Maybe you feel it in relationships, when you find yourself either clinging too tightly or keeping everyone at a safe distance. Maybe you feel it in work, always striving, never satisfied, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. Or maybe you feel it in faith, because when your picture of a father is absence, harshness, or inconsistency, it's hard to believe in a God who calls himself Father. It's hard not to project your earthly experience onto your heavenly one. Brother, this is why it matters. This is why we can't shrug it off as the past. Because until you face the ache keeps shaping you. But here's where hope breaks in. Yes, you didn't have the man you needed growing up, but you don't have to stay that boy. You don't have to keep waiting for someone else to fill the gap. You can become the man you needed for yourself, for the people you love, for the next generation. And that's not some vague motivational slogan. That's a calling. A responsibility, yes, but also a gift. Because in becoming that man, you heal parts of yourself you thought were gone forever. You're not doomed to repeat the same pattern. You're not locked into script. You're not destined to leave the same gaps behind that were left for you. It's through grace, through living with intention, through the strength of brotherhood, and through simply showing up that you can begin to grow into the man you always needed. Let me tell you a story. There was a boy who sat at the dinner table every night, and every night the chair at the head of the table stayed empty. Sometimes it was because his father was gone, working late, or gone altogether. Sometimes it was because when he did sit there, he was silent, or angry, or so distracted he might as well be gone. And as the boy grew, he stopped looking at the chair. He stopped waiting. He told himself it didn't matter. But deep down, that empty chair carved out an empty space in him. Years later, that boy became a man. And one night, he found himself sitting at his own table with his own family. And across from him, his son looked at him with eyes that asked a silent question. Will you be here? Will your chair be full? And that moment, he had a choice. He could keep repeating the pattern, or he could decide, this ends with me. So he pulled the chair close, leaned in, and stayed. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but faithfully. And little by little, the empty chair in him began to fill. Brother, maybe your chair was empty. Maybe your table was loud but loveless. Maybe your father was there but never with you. I want you to know you're not alone in that story, and you don't have to let that story define you. Because right now, today, there's an invitation on the table. Not to erase the past, not to pretend it didn't hurt, but to step into the present and to become the man you needed back then. That's where we're going in this episode. We're going to talk about how to name the gaps, how to heal the wounds, how to rebuild what was missing. We're going to walk through the psychology of how this works, the spiritual grounding that makes it possible, and the practical steps to live it out. You don't need to stay that empty boy, always waiting on the empty chair. You can become the man who fills it. This is the work. This is the invitation. This is the hope. So let's walk it out together. Brother, let's peel this back a little. Because what you and I are talking about here isn't just memory. It isn't just nostalgia. It's not about blaming the past for everything that goes wrong today. No, this runs deeper. This is about how the human mind and soul are wired. Because the truth is, every boy is shaped by his father, or by the absence of him. Let's start simple. A father is a mirror. He shows his son what it means to be a man. And here's the real thing about mirrors. If the reflection is cracked, distorted, or missing altogether, the boy grows up trying to piece together who he is without a clear picture. It's what's called attachment. It's that deep, wordless bond a child forms with the people who are supposed to keep him safe. When that bond is secure, the child learns, I'm safe, I'm loved, I can trust. When that bond is broken, inconsistent, or absent, the child learns, I'm on my own. I've got to earn love. I can't let people see the real me. Brother, that script doesn't just stay in childhood. It gets written into your adulthood. Here's what I mean. If you grew up without the man you needed, your nervous system adapted. Your brain learnt survival strategies. Maybe you became the performer, always working, always proving, never resting. Because somewhere deep down you thought, if I just succeed enough, maybe I'll finally be enough. Maybe you became the pleaser, smoothing everything over, avoiding conflict, keeping the peace. Because deep down you thought, if I can keep everyone happy, maybe I won't get abandoned. Or maybe you became the protector, hard, guarded, unshakable on the outside, because somewhere inside you decided, no one's ever going to hurt me again. Brother, these strategies make sense. They were your way of staying safe when you were little. But here's the problem. What kept you safe as a boy is now keeping you stuck as a man. Every one of those patterns is armor, and armor feels safe. But armor also keeps people out. Think about it. The performer never feels peace. The pleaser never feels free. The protector never feels close. Why? Because the wound beneath the armor never gets healed. The wound that says, I wasn't enough. I wasn't worth staying for. I wasn't worth blessing. Brother, here's the truth you need to hear. That wound was never about your worth. It was about his capacity. And if you keep defining yourself by the wound, you'll never step into the man you were meant to be. Now, let's connect the dots. Psychology tells us that patterns can be rewired. The brain isn't fixed, it's plastic, which means those old scripts, they're not permanent. Spiritually, grace tells us the same thing. You're not locked into your father's failures. You're not doomed to repeat the gaps you grew up with. You're not defined by the silence or the shouting or the absence at the table. You are free to write a new script. Not by pretending the old one doesn't exist, but by facing it, naming it, and then stepping into a stronger, freer way of being. Let me paint it for you. There was once a tree growing in the side of a hill. When it was young, the wind bent it hard in one direction. It grew crooked, leaning, twisted. Every time someone passed by, they looked at it and thought, that's just how the tree is. And the tree itself thought the same. This is who I am. This is how I'll always be. But one day a gardener came, and instead of cutting the tree down, he staked it. He pulled it gently, firmly, the other way. Not overnight, but slowly over years, and little by little, the tree grew straighter. Brother, you may have been bent by the winds of your childhood, but you're not beyond reshaping. Through grace, through intentional effort, through healing, you can grow strong again. Here's what I want you to sit with. The patterns you carry today are not proof that you're weak. They're proof that you adapted. They're survival strategies that worked once, but now it's time to outgrow them. You don't have to keep wearing the armor. You don't have to keep repeating the pattern. You don't have to let the boyhood wound define the manhood story. You're not stuck. You're not locked in. The same mind that learned to survive can learn to thrive. And the same God who watched you in your boyhood pain is ready to father you in your manhood strength. Brother, the pattern doesn't have to own you. You can write a new one. We've named the ache. We've traced the pattern. Now it's time to talk about the practice. Because naming a wound isn't the same as healing it. And spotting the pattern isn't the same as breaking it. So how do you actually become the man you needed growing up? Not just in theory, not just in your head, but in the way you live, lead, love, and show up. I want to give you some steps, not a formula, because healing doesn't come in neat little boxes, but a framework, a way forward. Step 1, show up. It starts here. Presence. Think back. What did you crave as a boy? Most of us didn't need fireworks or fancy things. We needed someone who showed up. The games, the conversations, the awkward teenage years, the moments where life felt confusing or heavy. Brother, presence heals. So become the man who shows up. Show up for yourself, not by running from your emotions, not by numbing out every time it gets hard. Show up for the people in your life, your kids, your wife, your friends, by being there even when you don't have all the answers. Because here's the truth. The man who shows up imperfectly does more healing than the man who stays away trying to be flawless. Step number 2. Speak the words. Words shape worlds. The words you never heard left a gap. The words you longed for, I'm proud of you, you matter, you've got what it takes, those weren't just nice sentiments. They were fuel. So if you never got them, you can still give them, starting with yourself. Hey, I know it sounds strange, but brother, if you don't learn to bless yourself, you'll spend the rest of your life chasing blessing from other people. Look in the mirror and speak life. Tell the younger you what he needed to hear. And don't stop there. Speak life into your kids, your brothers, the men around you. Words cost nothing, but they carry weight that can shift a man's destiny. Step 3. Break the silence with honesty. One of the biggest wounds men carry is silence. Nobody talked about the hard stuff. Nobody said what they really felt. Everything stayed bottled up. So the practice here is honesty. That means admitting when you're tired, confessing when you've messed up, naming your fears instead of hiding them. Because honesty isn't weakness. Honesty is strength under control. It's the difference between living free and living fake. And when you break the silence, you don't just heal yourself. You give other men permission to do the same. Step number 4. Forgiving without excusing. This one's tough. If you didn't get the man you needed growing up, forgiveness can feel impossible. Why should you let him off the hook? But forgiveness isn't excusing. Forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean the wound wasn't real. Forgiveness means you're refusing to let bitterness chain you to the past. You don't have to carry his failure forever. You don't have to let his absence echo endlessly. Forgiveness is releasing him into God's hands so you can walk free. Step number 5. Model what you missed. Here's where it all comes together. You may not have seen it done right, but you can become the model you never had. That means showing your kids what it looks like to fail and get back up. It means showing your wife what it looks like to listen instead of shutting down. It means showing your brothers what it looks like to pursue purpose instead of numbing pain. And as you model it, you don't just heal your house, you heal your heart. Because every time you choose to be the man you needed back then, you send a message to your younger self. You weren't crazy for needing this. You weren't weak. You weren't unworthy. You were always worth it. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who for years carried anger toward his father. Every time he thought about him, the old ache flared up. The silence, the criticism, the absence. It all lived inside him like a stone he couldn't set down. One day he sat down and wrote a letter. He wrote everything he wished had been said to him, everything he needed to hear. You're enough. I'm proud of you. I loved you. And when he finished, he realized the letter wasn't for his father. It was for him. For the boy inside who had waited too long for words that never came. So he folded it, put it away and walked out lighter. Not because his father had changed, but because he had. Brother, becoming the man you needed growing up is not about perfection. It's not about becoming some flawless example who never falters. It's about showing up, speaking truth, telling the truth, forgiving the past, modeling the presence and blessing you once longed for. You can't go back and change what you didn't get, but you can decide today to live in a way that heals, builds, and blesses. The man you needed back then, he can rise up in you, and brother, the world is waiting for him. We've named the ache. We've traced the pattern. We've walked through the practice. But if we stop there, if this is just about trying harder, hustling more, or stacking up good habits, then all we've done is pile more weight on your shoulders. And that's not what this is about. Because at the core, becoming the man you needed growing up isn't about willpower. It's about foundation. It's about who you are, who you belong to, and whose strength you're standing in. Let's be real. Some of us may never get closure with the fathers we had. The apology may never come. The blessing may never be spoken. The empty chair may stay empty. But here's the hope. You still have a father, not the kind who disappears, not the kind who rages, not the kind who stays silent when you need him most. You have a Father in heaven who says, "You are my beloved Son, in you I am well pleased." These words aren't reserved for the perfect. They're not reserved for the religious elite. They're spoken over every man who dares to believe that grace is bigger than his wounds. Brother, you may not have heard it from your earthly father, but you can hear it now from your heavenly one. You are loved, you are seen, you are worth staying for, you are worth blessing. This is where everything shifts, because until you know who you are, you'll keep performing for the approval you never got. Your early identity gets shaped by the words spoken over you. Your true identity is anchored in the one who made you. That means you don't have to keep chasing what was missing. You don't have to spend your whole life trying to earn a well done that never came. Your identity isn't something you earn. It's something you receive. And once you know who you are, you can show up, not to get love, but because you already have it. Now, let's talk about the future, because this isn't just about healing your past. It's about reshaping your future. When you become the man you needed growing up, you don't just heal yourself. You shift the whole story. The silence ends with you. The absence ends with you. The harshness ends with you. And in its place, you pass down presence. You pass down blessing. You pass down honesty, strength, grace, and faith. Brother, think about it. One man's choice can rewrite generations. What you didn't get, you can give. What you longed for, you can provide. What was missing, you can build. And in doing so, you become not only the man you needed growing up, you become the man your children, your family, your community, and your brothers in the fight need right now. There was once a man who grew up in a village divided by a deep ravine. On one side was where he lived as a child, lonely, lacking, cut off. On the other side was the future he longed for, connection, belonging, blessing. Every day he stood on his side and watched others cross with ease, because their fathers had built bridges for them. But in his family, no bridge had been built. For years he felt stuck, until one day he picked up a hammer, and plank by plank he began to build. Not because it was easy, not because it was quick, but because he was tired of watching the gap remain. And one day, when the bridge was finally complete, his children walked across it with joy. They didn't know the cost. They didn't know the pain, but they knew the gift. And the man smiled. For though he had never had the bridge built for him, he had become the builder for them. Brother, that's your calling. To pick up the hammer, to lay the planks, to become the man you needed, not just for yourself, but for those that come after you. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but faithfully. Because at the end of the day, that's what changes the world. Not men who look polished from a distance, but men who show up, scars and all, with a presence that says, I'm here, I'm staying, I'm building. So here's the invitation. Be honest about what was missing. Name the ache. Face the pattern. Step into the practice. And stand firm on the foundation of a Father who will never leave you. Brother, you don't have to keep waiting for someone else to be the man you needed growing up. That man is already in you. And every day you choose presence, every word of blessing you speak, every step of honesty you take, every act of forgiveness you release, you're building him. And the boy in you, he finally gets to breathe. And the man in you, he finally gets to rise. So let's walk this road together. Let's become the man we once needed. And in doing so, become the men this world desperately needs now. Stay faithful, stay free, and stay on purpose. I'm Paul, and this is Paul on Purpose.